And I ain't gonna lie, I had to check my mental health because I was literally on the verge of crashing out. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, I ain't gonna lie, I was really ready to go up there to No Jumper. You just see me up there, and if you feel me, Almighty came out, I probably would have really went to jail for it, for like a life sentence type. And then it was just gonna have to be what it was gonna be when the nigga was up in prison. You feel me? So, like with the Almighty suspect situation, you feel me? The reason why I really stopped trolling him, you feel me? Only you get this news though, man. I ain't gonna lie. So I had went down in the Hoovers for possession of a firearm. You feel me? They trying to say I tossed it. It ended up being a DA reject or whatever, right? Boom. Man, I'm hearing through my public defender that it was an anonymous call from Almighty suspect address, and they got a nigga booked. So basically, they said, because they know a nigga real name and all that type of shit. They know what they've been posting about me. Some little weird ass charges or whatever.
Yeah, I posted DC Baby Draco paperwork for touching kids.
So boom, they know my name. So they're telling them, he anonymous caller from that address. They call and they like, D'Anthony Dandy, he pulling up to my house. We think he got a gun. He got guns. So when I went down with the Hoovers and all of that, that's why they pulled up and they came to come grab me, feel me, to off that nigga statement type, feel me? So I wouldn't even necessarily say that it's a statement, but it was an anonymous tip from that address, you feel me? That's how that played a part, you feel me? I ended up going to jail or whatever the case may be, and you feel me?
Now let's get into it, because this situation right here has more depth than people realize. DC basically confirmed that Almighty suspect was the one who leaked an anonymous tip. And let's be real for a second, how else would they even know? Because if we're being honest, you don't just magically come across certain information unless somebody close to it is whispering behind the scenes. Yeah, we all know law enforcement has eyes on hip-hop pages. The so-called hip-hop police do exist, and they follow bigger platforms all the time. But let's not exaggerate here. DC's platform isn't on that level where they're sending agents to sit around and monitor his every move. He's not pulling in that type of mainstream spotlight where entire task forces are waiting on his uploads. So we could throw that whole idea out the window. And when you look at DC's personal life, the man seems to be in a good space. He's been focused on building up his content, staying consistent as a blogger, and just recently, he even won 50-50 custody rights with his son. That's a huge milestone. He was on Instagram smiling, showing his happiness, and letting people know he's moving forward in life. That doesn't sound like somebody who law enforcement is trying to bury. That sounds like a man handling his business, taking care of his family, and focusing on staying solid. Now on the other hand, we got Almighty suspect, and this is where things get messy. See, what he's doing reminds me of what DB the General has done in the past. Stirring up chaos, starting unnecessary drama, talking tough, and then when real pressure comes, when someone who's really about that life pulls up ready to go all the way with it, suddenly law enforcement gets dragged into the mix. That's not fair. You can't play the role of a street guy, talk like you're untouchable, and then call on the system to shield you when things get too real. That's a dangerous game, and it leaves you looking shaky in front of everybody. Because let's call it what it is. When you keep trying to live up to a tough guy image, all you're really doing is stacking up backlash. You invite hate, you attract unnecessary enemies. And one day, you might end up in a situation you can't talk your way out of or hide behind a badge from. And that's the reality Almighty suspect doesn't seem to understand yet. If you're focused on walking the straight and narrow, staying true to yourself, and handling your responsibilities like DC appears to be doing, you probably won't run into problems like this. You'll still face criticism, sure, but you won't have to constantly look over your shoulder worried about who's plotting. But if you insist on keeping up this image of being the hardest person in the room, then be prepared, because that energy is going to come back around. And when it does, the same law enforcement you lean on might not be there to save you from every consequence. So, at the end of the day, this whole situation is a lesson. DC seems to be handling business, staying positive, and leveling up in his personal life. Almighty suspect, on the other hand, is playing a dangerous game, one that might eventually catch up with him.